I found a folded photo tucked behind his credit cards. It wasn't of us, it was of a woman I've never met. Her smile was warm, almost intimate. He says she's just a friend, but why keep her picture so close, so secret and so carefully hidden? I wasn't looking for secrets that night. I only wanted a receipt, something small and ordinary tucked away in his wallet. My fingers brushed past the familiar stack of cards, the folded bills, the driver's license I'd seen 100 times. Then something unusual caught my eye. A crease, a corner of paper wedged behind his credit cards. I pulled it out, expecting maybe a note or a reminder. Instead, I unfolded a photograph. Her face stared back at me. A woman I had never seen before. Her smile was warm, almost tender, the kind of smile you give someone you know well, someone you trust. It wasn't posed like a family picture. It was personal, intimate, meant for him. My breath caught in my throat. Why was she here, hidden so carefully, folded and tucked away where no one would ever casually find it? I froze, the photo trembling in my hand. My first instinct was denial. Maybe she was a cousin, maybe an old friend. But the way he had hidden her picture told me otherwise. This wasn't something meant to be shared. This was something meant to be kept secret. When I asked him about it later, I tried to sound casual, though my voice betrayed me. Who is she? I held the photo out, my hand steady though my heart raced. He barely glanced at it. Just a friend, he said, too quickly, too dismissively. His tone was flat, rehearsed, as if he had prepared that answer long before I ever asked. But just a friend doesn't live folded behind credit cards. Just a friend doesn't smile like that, with warmth that feels almost like possession. His words rang hollow, and I felt the first crack in the trust one had carried for years. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our life together. The late-night calls he brushed off as work. The unexplained absences when he claimed he was running errands. The guarded look in his eyes when I asked simple questions. I had ignored them all, chalked them up to stress, to routine, to the natural distance that sometimes grows in long relationships. But now, with that photo burned into my memory, every detail felt suspicious. I remembered the early years when trust was effortless. When he would call me just to hear my voice, when he would rush home with flowers for no reason, when his eyes lit up at the sight of me. Those memories stood in sharp contrast to the unease gnawing at me now. Had I missed the signs all along? Had I been blind to the slow unraveling of our bond? The next morning I watched him closely. He moved around the kitchen, pouring coffee, checking his phone. I noticed how quickly he flipped the screen down when I walked in. I noticed how his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I noticed the way he avoided looking at me directly when I asked about his plans for the day. I didn't confront him again. Not yet. Instead, I decided to observe, to test his words against his actions. If she was just a friend, then his life should show it. But if she was more, then the truth would reveal itself in the small cracks, the inconsistencies, the moments he thought I wasn't paying attention. Days passed, and each one deepened my suspicion. He came home later than usual, claiming traffic. His phone buzzed at odd hours and he would step outside to answer, his voice low, his back turned. He grew more guarded, more careful, as if he sensed my watchful eyes. One evening, I noticed a faint scent on his shirt. Not mine, not our detergent, not anything familiar. It was subtle, but it lingered, and it wasn't from me. My stomach tightened. Another time, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket from a cafe across town, a place we had never visited together. The date matched a night he claimed to be working late. Each discovery was small, almost insignificant on its own. But together they formed a pattern, a story that contradicted his words. The photo became my silent companion. I tucked it back where I found it, hidden once more behind his cards, but I carried its image in my mind. It was no longer just a picture. It was a symbol of secrecy, of betrayal, of the life he lived when I wasn't looking. I began to test him in subtle ways. I asked about his day, watching for hesitation. I mentioned the cafe casually, noting the flicker in his eyes. I asked who had called, listening to the pause before he answered. Each time his responses were smooth, but too smooth, like lines rehearsed for a play. I started keeping a small notebook, jotting down times, places, details. It wasn't obsession, it was survival. I needed to know if my doubts were real, if the cracks in our trust were more than imagination. One afternoon I saw him standing outside our house, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was soft, almost tender, and though I couldn't hear the words, I recognized the tone. It was the same tone he used with me years ago when love was new and untainted. My chest tightened. I turned away before he noticed me, but the sound lingered. That tone wasn't for me anymore. It belonged to someone else. The doubt grew heavier, pressing down on me with each passing day. I found myself studying his face, searching for signs of guilt, of deception. Sometimes I thought I saw it. A flicker in his eyes, a tightness in his jaw. Other times he seemed perfectly normal, laughing, talking, carrying on as if nothing was wrong. But the photo never left my mind. Her smile haunted me, her presence invaded my thoughts. Who was she? Why was she hidden? Why did he keep her so close, so secret? I didn't have answers yet, but I had resolve. I would uncover the truth, piece by piece, without revealing my discovery too soon. He thought the photo was safe, tucked away where no one would ever look. But I had seen it. And now nothing would ever be the same. The photo haunted me, but silence became my weapon. I tucked it back into his wallet, hidden exactly as I found it, and carried its image in my mind like a secret flame. From that moment, every word he spoke, every movement he made became part of my quiet investigation. I began with questions so small they could pass as casual conversation. Did you hear from anyone today? I'd ask while stirring soup, my tone light, almost careless. He would nod, sometimes shrug, but his voice carried a faint tension whenever the subject of friends slipped into the air. It was subtle, an extra pause, a shift in his posture, a glance away. I noticed everything. One morning over coffee I asked, "Do you still meet people from work outside the office?" He hesitated, then answered too quickly, "Not really." The words were smooth, but his eyes betrayed him. They darted toward the window, avoiding mine. That tiny flicker was enough to confirm what I already suspected. There was more to his story than he wanted me to know. I couldn't carry the weight alone. So I confided in Mrs. Patel, my neighbor across the street. She had lived here longer than anyone, always watching the world from her porch with a keen eye. I trusted her discretion. When I mentioned my unease, she leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I saw him at the cafe downtown last week," she said. "He wasn't alone. There was a woman with him. They looked comfortable." Her words struck me like a spark to dry wood. Comfortable. That single word painted a picture I couldn't ignore. My resolve hardened. I needed proof, not just suspicion. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. One evening he announced he had errands to run. His tone was casual, but I felt the undercurrent of secrecy. I waited until he left, then slipped into my car, trailing him at a careful distance. My heart pounded with each turn, my hands tight on the steering wheel. He drove across town, finally stopping at a quiet restaurant tucked between shops. I parked far enough away to remain unseen. Through the window I spotted him at a corner table. And there she was, the woman from the photo. Her smile was unmistakable, her presence undeniable. They laughed together, leaning close, their conversation flowing with ease. My chest tightened, a mix of anger and disbelief. I wanted to storm inside, to demand answers, but I stayed rooted in place. Confrontation would come later. For now, I needed to watch, to gather, to understand. Driving home alone, the silence in the car felt heavier than ever. My mind raced with questions. Who was she? Why was she hidden? Why did she matter so much to him? The betrayal burned, but beneath it lay a strange curiosity. I wanted to know her story, not just his. In the days that followed, I became a collector of fragments. A receipt tucked in his jacket revealed another visit to that cafe. A slip of paper with a phone number scribbled hastily, left on the counter, hinted at private communication. One evening, I overheard his voice on the phone, softer than usual, carrying a tone of familiarity I hadn't heard directed at me in years. Then came the message. Our home phone blinked with a missed call. I pressed play and her voice filled the room. "I'll see you tomorrow," she said, light and cheerful, as if speaking to someone she belonged to. My stomach twisted. She wasn't just a stranger anymore. She was real, present, woven into his life in ways I hadn't imagined. I began to notice patterns. His absences aligned with her calls. His mood shifted after their meetings. Lighter, distracted, sometimes distant. Each clue painted a clearer picture, a hidden life unfolding behind the walls of our home. One afternoon I decided to test him again. "I heard the cafe downtown has good food," I said casually, flipping through a magazine. His reaction was instant. A flicker of surprise, a tightening of his jaw. I haven't been there, he replied quickly, too quickly. The lie was sharp, undeniable. I kept my face neutral, but inside the storm raged. His deception was no longer speculation, it was fact. The search for answers consumed me, but I carried it with quiet determination. I didn't lash out, didn't reveal my discoveries. Instead, I built my case piece by piece, each fragment adding weight to the truth I was uncovering. At night, I lay awake, replaying every detail. The way he smiled at her, the sound of her voice, the lies he told me. My emotions tangled. Anger, betrayal, sadness, and a strange fascination with the woman who had stepped into my life without ever meeting me. I wondered what she knew. Did she know about me? Did she know she was part of a secret? Or had he painted himself as free, unattached, available? The thought gnawed at me, deepening my resolve to uncover not just his actions, but the story behind them. One evening I followed him again. This time he met her at a bookstore. They browsed together, laughing over titles, sharing quiet moments. Watching them, I felt a sharp ache, not just from betrayal but from the realization that he had given her pieces of himself that once belonged to me. I returned home with a notebook full of observations, each entry a testament to the truth he tried to hide. Dates, times, places, receipts, phone calls, all evidence of a life lived in shadows. The search for answers was no longer just about him. It was about me, about reclaiming my clarity, my strength, my right to know the truth. Each discovery, each clue, each lie exposed brought me closer to the confrontation I knew was inevitable. But for now I remained silent, watching, listening, gathering. The photo had opened the door, but the evidence was building the path. And I was determined to walk it step by step, until the truth stood undeniable before us both. The notebook lay open on my desk, filled with dates, places, and fragments of truth. Each entry was a piece of the puzzle, and together they formed a picture I could no longer ignore. My silence had carried me this far, but silence could not carry me any further. It was time to confront him. I waited until evening, when the house was quiet and the air heavy with the scent of dinner cooling on the table. He walked in, humming softly, setting his keys down as if nothing in the world was amiss. I sat at the kitchen table, the folded photo resting in front of me. My fingers pressed against it, steady, deliberate. "Sit down," I said, my voice calm but firm. He glanced at me, sensing the weight in my tone, and slowly lowered himself into the chair across from me. I unfolded the photo and placed it between us. The woman's smile stared up from the table, undeniable, unhidden now. "Tell me who she is," I demanded, my eyes locked on his. His face tightened, the easy mask slipping. "She's just a friend," he repeated, the same hollow line he had given me before. "No," I said sharply, cutting through his excuse. "Friends don't get hidden in wallets. Friends don't leave messages on our phone. Friends don't meet you in restaurants while you lie to me about errands." The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. His shoulders slumped, and for the first time he looked defeated. "I didn't want you to know," he whispered. The words sliced through me. "Didn't want me to know what?" I pressed, my voice trembling with anger. "That I've been seeing her," he admitted, his eyes dropping to the table. "It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did." The confession hit harder than any suspicion ever could. My chest burned, my hands clenched, but I forced myself to stay composed. "How long?" I asked, each syllable sharp. "Months," he said quietly. "Maybe longer." I let the anger rise, no longer holding it back. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The years I gave you, the sacrifices, the loyalty? I stood by you through everything, and this is what you chose." He flinched at my words, but I didn't stop. "I cooked for you, cared for you, believed in you. I trusted you when you said you were working late, when you said you were tired, when you said you needed space. And all the while, you were giving yourself to someone else." His eyes filled with guilt, but guilt was not enough. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said weakly. I laughed bitterly, the sound sharp in the quiet room. "You didn't mean to hurt me? You hid her photo, you lied to my face, you built a life behind my back. That wasn't an accident. That was a choice." He reached across the table as if to take my hand, but I pulled back. "Don't," I warned. "You don't get to comfort me now." The air between us was thick with everything unsaid, everything broken. I stared at him, seeing not the man I once loved but the stranger he had become. "I want you to understand something," I said, my voice steady now. "I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to cry in front of you. I'm not going to ask why she's better than me. Because she isn't. What she is proof that you couldn't honor what we had. He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand to silence him. You don't get to explain this away. You don't get to soften it. You betrayed me, and nothing you say will change that. I stood, pushing the chair back, the photo still lying on the table between us. You will live with the emptiness you created. You will live with the silence of this house when I'm gone. You will live with the knowledge that you destroyed something that could never be rebuilt. His eyes widened, panic flickering across his face. You're leaving. Yes, I said firmly. I am leaving. Not tonight, not in anger, but soon. And when I do, you will feel the weight of what you've lost. He tried again, desperation creeping into his voice. We can fix this. Please. I'll end it with her. I shook my head. Trust, once broken, cannot be mended. You chose her over honesty. You chose secrecy over loyalty. And now I choose myself. The words hung in the air, final and unshakable. That night I packed a small bag, not to leave immediately but to remind myself that I could. Each folded shirt, each pair of shoes, was a declaration of independence. I wasn't trapped. I wasn't powerless. I had a choice and I was making it. In the days that followed, the house felt different. He moved through it quietly, subdued, as if afraid to disturb the silence. I carried myself with dignity, no longer questioning, no longer searching. The truth was out, and the confrontation had stripped away every illusion. One evening I walked past the kitchen and saw him sitting alone, the photo still on the table. He stared at it, his face etched with regret. I didn't stop. I didn't speak. I simply walked on, leaving him with the emptiness he had created. The resolution wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, firm, unshakable. I reclaimed my dignity not by shouting, not by revenge, but by walking away stronger than before. I learned that betrayal doesn't define me. His secrets don't define me. What defines me is the strength to stand, to face the truth, and to choose a life beyond his lies. And so I closed the chapter. Not with tears, not with rage, but with clarity. Trust, once broken, cannot be mended. And my life will no longer be written by his deception. I walked away, carrying the lesson with me, carrying my strength, carrying the promise that I would never again be bound by someone else's secrets.